Hello viewers and welcome to Herald TV's Ground Zero program. Today we are here to talk about a very important subject, and that is the looming Chinese threat over India. It's been 3 years since the Indian and Chinese military clashed on the icy heights of Galwan, but till now the Chinese don't seem to be receding their aggressive stance towards India. In this program we would know what does this mean for India and what is our way forward. But let's have a look at some visuals of what happened in Galwan.
齐卡堡组织官兵一边喊话交涉，一边占据有利地形，与数倍于己的外军展开殊死搏斗。
Even though it has been 3 years since the clashes between India and Chinese army troops occurred at Galwan Valley in Ladakh region, China's aggressive stance towards India is showing no signs of reducing. At a time when India is desperate to match up to China, the prospect of path-breaking defense deals during the ongoing visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to US is causing lot of excitement back home. The clash in 2020 highlighted the geopolitical contestations between India and China in the Indo-Pacific region. China's bullish behavior, including its territorial claims and aggressive actions in the South China Sea, has raised concerns among regional nations. This has led to a collective pushback. The Quad has played a significant role in addressing these concerns by advocating for a rules-based international order, freedom of navigation, and respect for territorial integrity. India has been actively participating in the Quad, and this reflects its commitment to maintaining a stable Indo-Pacific region and upholding shared values and principles.
At a time when India is desperate to match up with China's defense technologies and defense capabilities, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting US, and it is expected that a lot of critical technology sharing deals are going to take place during his visit. With us right now we have a very important guest, and he is Admiral Arun Prakash, our former Indian Navy Chief and Gallantry Award winner or recipient of the Veer Chakra, the third highest Gallantry Award that he won during the 1971 Indo-Pak operations. Welcome, sir, to this edition of Ground Zero with Herald TV.
Thank you, Shashwat.
So, sir, to start with, it's been 3 years since the Galwan happened. So, 3 years down the line, how do you see the scenario in terms of our intelligence capabilities and our defense preparedness as far as China is concerned?
Well, as a matter of fact, the Indian Armed Forces responded within days, if not within hours, of the Galwan incident. And we have boosted up our defense preparedness in that region, in the Ladakh, Eastern Ladakh, Aksai Chin region. Boosted it up substantially, both in terms of manpower, force levels, logistics build-up, etc. So today, 3 years on, I think we are very well prepared to take on our armed forces, can take on anything that the Chinese might like to try in the near future. So it is most unlikely that a Galwan-like incident can happen again. As far as our intelligence is concerned, there was never any shortcomings in intelligence, but 3 years on, I think we are far better placed now. We have many more sources of intelligence, both technical and non-technical, satellites, drones, reconnaissance aircraft, and of course we have friends and partners who can supply us with intelligence. So all in all, both as far as force levels are concerned, preparedness is concerned, logistics, roads and so on are concerned, and of course intelligence, as I mentioned, we are much better placed now than we were when the Galwan incident happened.
So, how serious is the Chinese threat? Some say it is exaggerated, some say it is something that we should be losing our sleep on. How do you see the Chinese threat? How real and how potent is it?
There is no doubt, there should be no doubt in anyone's mind that the Chinese threat is quite serious and quite real, because they themselves, the Chinese don't hesitate to tell us, their ambassadors, their spokesmen, etc., have never lost an opportunity to remind us that they stake a claim over where we are right now, and the whole state of Arunachal Pradesh, and any Indian of importance who visits there, Arunachal Pradesh, there is an instant protest from the Chinese. So there can be no doubt that they are staking a claim to a whole state, 84,000 square kilometers. And of course, the dispute about the line of actual control is still going on, where we know. So the threat is very real. They are not backing off. They are showing no signs of reconciling or returning to status quo ante as we had hoped in terms of military repositioning. So if none of that is happening, then we have no choice but to take the Chinese threat with the utmost seriousness that we can.
So, in your recent article published in a national daily, you had begun your article by quoting this senior colonel of PLA Academy of Military Sciences, Zhao Ziazhou, that India is unlikely to catch up with China's defense build-up, not in years but in decades. So, how do you assess this statement of his?
Well, to some extent, I presume the Chinese colonel was indulging in some kind of psychological warfare, trying to discourage us. But essentially, he has a point that at this moment, we are lagging behind China in terms of technology, especially in the field of military technology. We are lagging behind quite substantially. Now, it all depends on us and our scientists and our research and development establishment. How long do we take to catch up with China, if at all we do catch up? And the reason for it is quite obvious, that China became an independent country in 1949. We became independent in 47. Both started from more or less the same industrial base. But the Chinese leadership focused right from the very beginning on developing military technology and military capabilities, whereas we have neglected them for the last 70 years or so. And we have also become import dependent, so that today about 70% or 70 odd percent of our military hardware is imported. We are amongst the first or second largest importers of military hardware in the whole world. This is a serious handicap. So our leadership right from the word go failed to give adequate attention to the indigenous development of military technology, whereas the Chinese focused very sharply on it. They launched successive campaigns of reverse engineering, of acquiring technology, buying technology, even stealing technology, what is called industrial espionage. So they focus very sharply on it, and the results are quite obvious. Today, China is in a position to challenge the USA in terms of advanced technology, whereas we are lagging far behind. And as I said, we are importing much of our military hardware from abroad, which undermines our independence and strategic autonomy and so on. So the colonel's statement was essentially correct. Maybe he indulged in a little bit of hyperbole or exaggeration.
So, the Atmanirbhar program that we have been talking about, that you said that we are into a lot of imports, and this Atmanirbhar program which was launched essentially to make indigenization more stronger and reduce our imports, but it hasn't really taken off the way it was envisaged. So, do you think we are really taking our military indigenization program really seriously, considering the amount of imports that is still going on, and what should be done to strengthen our Atmanirbhar program?
Right, the Atmanirbhar campaign is, I think, a very well thought out and well intentioned program. There is no doubt about it. We should have launched this many decades ago, and had we done so, possibly we would not have been where we are today. But Atmanirbhar is much more than a slogan. It has become a political slogan, and it is being used as a label for everything that happens. It says Atmanirbhar. That is not true. Atmanirbharta, or self-reliance or self-sufficiency, is a process which will take decades to fructify. It will be the end result of a process of research and development, where our scientists have to enter various disciplines required for military hardware and then develop them and come out with solutions. It is not something that can happen overnight. So this political usage of this term Atmanirbhar is misleading people. It is a good campaign, it has got very good intentions, it is badly required, but we must recognize that it will take time to fructify. It could take, I mean, one can't forecast how long a scientific development will take. Research and development is a painstaking process. So, it could take anything from 10, 15, 20 years for the results of Atmanirbharta to emerge. Till that time, we cannot handicap our military by saying that you don't use anything imported. So, we will have to.
Happening now. They listed out a lot of
banned list, etc. Again, that's a questionable step whether a banned list has any meaning or not, because when you are defending your country, you have to have every means available to you. We can't wait for indigenization to complete the cycle. So, Atmanirbharta will produce results, but not overnight, and it is foolish to expect something to happen tomorrow and to label everything that happens as Atmanirbhar, because it is not so. Much of what we are producing indigenously today has components and content which is imported, and that is inevitable. It will happen. We can't do it overnight. So, it is a good campaign, good endeavor. We must be patient and we must persevere and we must fund it adequately, and also we must encourage the private sector to participate fully, both in research and development and in production and so on.
Especially the PSUs, the public sector units, and collaborating with the startups.
Yes, I mean that was so far we have been 100% reliant on public sector undertakings, whose efficiency and whose productivity and work ethic has been questionable, not been totally satisfactory. So, there was a thought at one time of going into partnership, public sector undertakings going into partnership with prominent private sector undertakings. But somehow that has fizzled out, because there is such a strong lobby which backs the public sector that the private sector has not yet got a fair opportunity. This is a serious lacuna which needs to be addressed. We must allow the initiative, the innovation, of course, the profit motive of the private sector, which ensures productivity and efficiency and so on. So, we must allow private sector. We must encourage them to undertake R&D, research and development on their own, so that innovations can come about. So, till that happens, we will not be exploiting the full capability, full range of capabilities that are already available in the country. You know that young Indians are leading in innovation in other countries, in Silicon Valley, in the USA. It is young Indians who are doing it. So, why can't the same young Indians do it for their own country? So, we need to harness the full talent that is available in the country, and by sticking to public sector only, we are depriving ourselves of many benefits that could emerge.
So, your article that had appeared in the national media had the backdrop of US and India relations, and our Prime Minister is visiting US now, and there is a lot of euphoria surrounding the proposed defense deals, multi-million defense deals. But do you think it is really going to strengthen and give us the technological edge that we are looking at to counter China? Is this the fix of all type of situation, or there is more to than meets the eye?
Well, our Prime Minister's visit to USA and the kind of reception he is being accorded there and the importance being given to his visit are very good signs. They are signs for, they are cause for a lot of optimism on our part. Euphoria, of course, is not called for, but we must remember that USA continues till today to be the repository of much of the world's advanced technology. It all comes from the USA. It is produced by them. So, if they are willing to share some of that technology with us, it can only be to our benefit, and right now we should be looking for military technology. So, the signs are all there. Now, how much benefit we derive from this Prime Minister's visit? So, the Prime Minister's visit to the USA is a very welcome opportunity. It has been given a lot of importance by the United States, and that's a very good sign that they are recognizing India, and India as an emerging world power, and they recognize that the Prime Minister of India should be given due acknowledgement of his status. Now, the point is that America till today continues to be the source and repository of much of the world's high technology, regardless of advances in other countries. It is the USA which is which has much of the world's advanced technology, and our main interest at this moment is military technology. So if as a result of Prime Minister Modi's visit to the USA, America agrees to share some of the advanced technology with us, that will be a great step forward. Now these are all issues of high diplomacy and international relations, because technology, advanced technology is very precious. No company, no country would like to part with it without extracting a huge price, and that price will not only be economic price, but it could also be a political price, a diplomatic price. So now it all depends on our leadership and our diplomats on how well they negotiate to ensure that we get what we need from America by paying the price that we can afford to pay, both in terms of money and in terms of political compromises that would have to be made. Now here I must mention that all these years we have been producing foreign military hardware. We have been producing aircraft, aero engines, ships, radars, weapons, etc. But we have not, our scientists and designers have not learned how to produce these items on our own, through our own initiative. Own design and own technology. We have only learned how to make them under license or to assemble from parts that are supplied by the manufacturers. So over 70 years of manufacturing foreign aircraft, ships, submarines, engines, so on, our designers and our scientists have not learned how to make it themselves. Now that will only happen if somebody shares the technology with us. What is called in parlance is called know-how and know-why of how a thing is designed. So that is what I hope that this Prime Minister's visit will get for us from the USA, is how, not just know how, but also know why. For example, we are going to co-produce or license produce an aero engine called the General Electric F414. Now we have produced engines earlier also. We produced many thousands of Russian engines, French engines, British engines. But this time we need to know from the Americans how and why they have designed each component. So after we finish with this engine, our own designers and engineers will be able to make their own engine. So that would be a real value addition, and that is the objective which must be sought by our politicians, our diplomats and our scientists. So then if this happens, then we can say that this euphoria or optimism, etc., that you mentioned is fully justified. So if that doesn't happen, then it is just another visit and another set of licensed production programs and so on.
So do you see it more of a hype or more of a practical excitement? How do you see it?
No, I would see it as optimism, because it is high time now, especially in view of the fact that China is pushing us from the north and we have an unfriendly neighbor in the west, Pakistan. So and we continue to be a huge importer of arms, which makes us dependent on we are dependent on Russia for arms, as I mentioned, and Russia's own state is not very good. How long will Russia be able or willing to continue to supply us arms? They have become close friends of China. China is our arch enemy. So this is a very difficult juncture in our country's political history. So and this Prime Minister's visit to America comes at this juncture. So that is why there is a lot of optimism and hope and euphoria, as you say, that this visit will actually produce some tangible results which will make us or put us on the path to self-reliance or Atmanirbharta as far as military hardware is concerned. So that is the reason for the euphoria. The results will be known only after conclusion of the visit.
So knowing US's history, its fickle-mindedness, today it is like you don't know when it can change its mind on what geopolitical scenario. Can we really depend on US as a long-term partner, if not an ally, in terms of supplying us critical technology? Because tomorrow in the multipolar world, we suppose want to ally with somebody else, for example. And will US take offense to that and take a backseat and suddenly stop supplying us critical equipment? And we have had a history of these incidents in the past. So how much of all this is we can put our eggs in the US basket?
So I think I can only repeat that old adage which says that a country should have no permanent friends and no permanent enemies. There are only permanent interests. National interest is the only thing that we should look out for. It should be permanent and enduring. So in every dealing that we do, we should maintain India's interest first and foremost. Yes, you are right that USA in the past has been fickle, has been a close ally of Pakistan. It was very close with China for many years after the Nixon and Mao Zedong visit. So tomorrow winds of international diplomacy can change, but we must be quite clear in our mind that we must pursue our own national interests. So putting all eggs in one basket obviously is not a good idea, but wherever we can get advantage for our national interest, we must pursue that course of action. So here again, I don't think that America will change overnight. After all, America is allying with or hoping to ally with India for a particular reason. They are worried about the rise of China. So are we. So as long as the rise of China is worrying America and India can form a useful partner or friend to the Americans, I don't think they will change as quickly as you seem to fear. So I think in the short term and the medium term, this is a good step that we are taking to partner with America, gain the most advantage that we can in our national interest. And if should things change, should America's point of view change, then we have other options also. I mean, after all, we are not going to break our relationship with Russia, with Israel, with France. There are many other sources of military hardware available, military technology. So all options have to be kept open, and we have to take the maximum advantage at a particular juncture in history. And this seems to be a good juncture for us to get close to America and derive as much advantage as we can in our national interest.
So the last question, you just had said how Russia is now getting closer to China, and Russia has openly said that it wants to build relationships with Pakistan, and on the other side US wants us to wane away from Russia, although we have a long standing ties with Russia. Now in this entire you can say in this scenario, the Indian subcontinent seems to be in a very critical scenario. So how does India maintain a balance between its requirements from US as well from the West, but keeping in mind Russia's changing positions and our previous or existing relationships with Russia? What is the balancing act you think India should be doing currently?
Well, I think the balancing act that you mentioned is encapsulated in this policy or strategy of what we call strategic autonomy. It used to be called non-alignment in the old days. Now it's called strategic autonomy, which means that no one should be able to push us into a particular course of action, either diplomatically or follow a particular economic policy. For example, Russia or China should not be able to push us into making any territorial concessions. America should not be able to push us into following certain economic policies, etc. So strategic autonomy just means this, that we should be able to take each decision in our own national interests. That will require very astute juggling of balls, 3 or 4 balls in the air at the same time, because we have made ourselves vulnerable by becoming dependent on Russia for arms, and that dependency is not going to go away overnight. Now we are going to become dependent on America for arm, hardware as well as for technology. So there are 2 things that we need to do. One is to follow strong economic policy, sound economic policy, so that our economic strength grows and we can invest more and more in technology. And secondly is to encourage our own technology to grow, so that reliance outside is minimized and we become more and more self-reliant. So Atmanirbharta is the ultimate aim, which will make us totally, not totally, but substantially independent of outside influences. Till then, we have to make sure that we don't enter any deep crisis, military crisis. We don't go to war with anybody. And that will require very astute political sort of juggling of balls, tightrope walking, and good statesmanship on part of our political leaders.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing such valuable thoughts. Viewers, you just heard our former Navy Chief, Admiral Arun Prakash, sharing such insightful thoughts on how the geopolitical situation is playing up around India and how India needs to play its cards very carefully to first of all take care of its own interests as well as maintain a balance between the changing situation which is happening more faster than we could have thought. So we hope that the government of India takes cue from what our Admiral has just said and at least implement something out of it so that we can make ourselves more stronger and deal with our adversaries in a much more better way. Thank you. This is Shashwat Guptare signing off from Ground Zero Herald TV.